Om Shanti. A very good evening to all the participants of our today's session of Sunday Evening Talk. We heartily welcome you to our today's session, and we hope you had a good weekend, are feeling relaxed, and are all ready for our today's session. So, in brief, I'll give an introduction about this program. So, Refreshing Sunday Evening Talk is a weekly program that has been organized since many years by Shanti Sarovar Hyderabad, and since the last year it has been continuing seamlessly virtually. So earlier we used to meet in Shanti Sarovar Hyderabad. Shanti Sarovar is one of the biggest retreat centers of Brahma Kumaris and the largest so in southern India. And Brahma Kumaris is one of the biggest socio-spiritual organization in the world. It is spread across 130 countries with close to 9,000 centers. So with this, I would like to go ahead and tell you about our today's topic. I hope you are aware. So our topic for today is Will to be Well. And to guide us on this, we have a very experienced faculty with us. I welcome Sister Brahma Kumari, Sister Raksha with us, who is here from South Africa. And we would like to hear more about this topic because she is extremely experienced in the field of wellness and care. She has a 20 years experience in palliative medicine and has a master's degree in dignity experience of patients with advanced disease. She has been a teacher as well as a student of meditation with Brahma Kumaris. She has been the founder and chairperson of an NGO in South Africa to support the healthcare practitioners. She brings a wide variety of experiences that she will share with us and how to be well, how we can be well at will. So exploring more on this topic, we hand over this virtual stage to our sister Raksha. Sister, over to you. And thank you and welcome to Shanti Sarovar virtually.
So thank you. And it's
yes. So to all the participants, I would like to request the sister is open to all your questions. So do jot down your question in the chat box and sister will take all the questions in the end, as many as possible. Thank you, sister. Over to you.
Thank you, Sister Lavneet. It's wonderful to be with all of you this afternoon, evening in India, and in South Africa, it's 2 p.m. So it's really lovely. I remember fondly being in Hyderabad just before the lockdown. I had visited Om Shanti Sarovar retreat center in March, and then when I returned back to South Africa, South Africa went under lockdown. So I luckily got to see the beautiful retreat space there in Hyderabad, and having many friends in Hyderabad, it was wonderful to be asked to share with you again today. So like Lavneet Ben mentioned, I've been working as a medical doctor for the last 20 years. And when asked about which questions would be, which topics would be useful for today's session, I had listed a few, but it seemed like this topic, will to be well, is very pertinent at this time. Suddenly 2 years ago, or so, we were all thrown into such a challenging time with COVID-19. And so for myself, today I'll explore this topic with my own personal experience with well-being and how one can will to be well. And it's been a beautiful journey of discovery for myself personally as a healthcare professional, as I meet different individuals. And so definitely if we are well from inside out, it does have an impact on all domains of our life. Not only does it influence and help us have better health, but it also fuels our purpose and drive in life. It affects our relationships, our finances, our success, our entire world. And so it is so important to look at this topic deeply, and it's wonderful that we can look at it together and look at how I personally can will to be well. I know if you look at the World Health Organization definition of health, health is stated to be a state of complete physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being. And in South Africa, we would also add cultural well-being, because there's a big influence of culture on the whole being. And, and health is not just merely the absence of disease. And yet the Western world has seen health in isolation, as a mere biomedical model. And whilst Eastern traditions has looked at health more holistically and the impact of various factors on the well-being and the health of an individual. I know for myself, when I first understood this more deeply was in my early years, possibly 2004, when I was practicing at a medical clinic. And I remember a patient walking through the door, and as she knocked on the door and peeked her head through the door, I thought, wow, she reminds me of somebody that is dear to me. And as she walked in, her demeanor, her posture, her physique, her body shape, all were very similar to the individual that I was thinking of. And as she began to open her mouth and speak, her chirpy voice, her thinking patterns behind the words that she spoke was so similar to this individual that I knew. And I thought, this is so uncanny, so amazing that, as soon as she popped her head in to my room, I thought of this individual, how she walked, how she sat, how she spoke, how she looked, everything about her was so much in alignment with the person I had thought of. And then we spoke a little because, I like to get to know people, before the consult. And as I opened her file then to look at her disease profile, can you believe she had the same illnesses that the person I was thinking of had? And so as I finished up that clinic and as I drove home, I just thought, it is amazing that I really am my own creation. So to what extent everything about me starts from within. And there's a deep impact of everything, even how I look, the diseases I have, it's based on that inner world and that inner state of well-being. And I remember then calling this person who was close to me and just sharing this with her, because I also wanted her to work on some of her illnesses. And, and really sharing with her that, we choose how we look, the illnesses we have. And so look at yourself deeply and try to understand how, I need to tweak and change things internally, and how they will then flow into this body and make an impact on not only my physique, but my disease profile, everything about me. And I know maybe some of you may have heard about the studies with the famous Japanese scientist, Dr. Emoto. And I'd like to share that with you as well. I don't know, is this pace of speaking okay? sometimes in South Africa, I think we can speak too fast. But if this is good for you.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Babita. So wonderful. So yes, so also, Dr. Emoto's studies. Dr. Emoto was a Japanese scientist who showed the impact of vibrations and thoughts on water molecules. And so he placed water in a room, and people have had thoughts of peace and love and were meditating in that room. And as they had those thoughts towards that glass of water, he then froze that water and he sectioned it, and he looked at that water under the microscope. And those water molecules looked so beautiful and crystal like. And that same water, then, when placed in a room and exposed to thoughts of hate and anger, and then that water was then frozen and sectioned and looked at under the microscope. And that water, the molecules looked like sludge. And so it's quite a famous study. You might want to look it up. And our body is made up of 70% water, isn't it? And so if I am having thoughts of doubt, anxiety, fear, worry, self-loathing, whatever thoughts I may have, those thoughts are influencing all my trillions of cells in this body. And I just found that study was also so amazing to help one understand that definitely there is an impact of the mind on the body. And so now, in many prestigious universities, like Stanford University in the United States, they have whole departments that are dedicated to mind-body medicine, to understand the power of thoughts and emotions on physical health. And so previously, in Western traditions, they had separated the body from the mind until they had conducted studies by interested bodies. And now there is a move to understand that. And even Hippocrates, which is somebody known as the father of medicine, he said the natural healing force within each one of us is the greatest force for getting well. And so let us look at it more deeply. How can I will to be well? But just to share with you some studies so you can see how vast this subject is in various aspects of illness or disease. In 1964, George Solomon, a psychiatrist, had noted that patients with rheumatoid arthritis actually got worse when they were depressed. And so he decided to investigate the impact of emotions on inflammation and the immune system in general. And from this emerged another field of medicine called psychoneuroimmunology. And so definitely when one is depressed or there's stress, it was noted very clearly that rheumatoid arthritis flared up and patients then had joint inflammation. And then another study by Herbert Benson in the early 1970s, and he noted the impact of meditation on lowering blood pressure. And he coined a term, relaxation response. And then another psychologist showed how, that's Robert Adler, in 1975, he showed how mental and emotional stress can affect the immune system. And we can look at that later. And also there were studies with patients with HIV/AIDS, and they showed that patients who had a deep faith in God and compassion towards others and a sense of inner peace and were religious had better chances of surviving than those who did not. And I was just remembering in my early practice of medicine, I had met a wonderful lady, and she was so positive in her mind. She had such a clean life, and she protected her mind space and practiced very healthy living to such an extent that even though she was living with HIV/AIDS for 16 years, she had not a single illness, and she was not on antiretrovirals to treat the HIV/AIDS. And she was telling me, do you know what my secret is? And she says, no matter what, I will never allow my mind to feel any negativity. And I eat healthily, I keep good company, and I keep a clean lifestyle. And so really another individual that is a typical example of how if I take care of my mental space, it does impact on my physical well-being. Whilst at that time in 2004-5, HIV/AIDS was eating through the communities of South Africa, such that we were seeing many dying at that time. And so yes, many studies. In 1989, David Spiegel at Stanford University also demonstrated the impact of the power of the mind on patients with cancer. And he had 86 women with late-stage breast cancer, and they were randomly assigned to groups where one received standard medical care, and the other received standard medical care and weekly support sessions. And they showed that the women who had that support sessions, they lived twice as long than those who did not. So again, the impact of the mind on the body. And then in 1999, a similar study showed that women with breast cancer, with advanced breast cancer, those who had feelings of helplessness or hopelessness, were associated with a lesser chance of survival. And currently as well, I work with patients with stage 4 cancer, and in dealing with them and in working with these patients, I definitely see the impact of our mindset and the power of the mind in affecting situations within the body. And it's quite amazing to observe. And so, yes, many other studies showing how meditation affects mood and symptoms in people in different conditions, such as high blood pressure, irritable bowel syndrome, cancer. And in cancer itself, there are many studies that show that if the psycho-existential and social circumstances of the patient are taken care of, then they do have better quality of life and even live longer. And it lessens their suffering, it improves their dignity, their will to live, and also reduces depression, anxiety, etc. And I know early on in my studies of medicine, I had learned of the correlation between cardiac failure, so heart failure, and also depression. And I thought, isn't that amazing? Because heart failure, means a broken heart, a failing heart. And they actually have studies that show that those who have depression are prone to cardiac failure. So, another study, just showing that impact. And I know I had read about diabetes and how those who have diabetes and have a lot of stress, that increased cortisol and increased sugar levels can also lead to cell atrophy and early dementia. And so many studies, and in Mount Abu, with our CAD program, so the coronary artery disease program, they have shown the impact of meditation, a healthy lifestyle, exercise on reducing the plaque in the coronary arteries. And so wonderful studies showing how meditation and a healthy lifestyle and exercise can reduce plaque and improve coronary artery disease and heart attacks. And if you look at patients with chronic pain or illnesses that Western medicine does not understand too much, many of them are placed on drugs that would increase their serotonin and their adrenaline. That would increase their serotonin and noradrenaline, which are more related to a more antidepressive medication, and it does improve then the irritable bowel syndrome or the chronic pain. So to what extent is that chronic pain pure pain, or is there an impact of social pain or psychological pain? So in palliative medicine, we treat pain in cancer patients, and we understand that there's a term called total pain, and pain is not just physical, but if somebody is struggling to come to terms with the diagnosis, or is struggling in a relationship, or cannot forgive themselves and move on, or if somebody is really struggling spiritually, their pain is exacerbated. And so as healthcare professionals in palliative medicine, we don't just treat the physical pain, but we also have deeper conversations with patients to understand where the root of their psychological fears or their social pain may be emerging from, or their spiritual pain. And then we involve counselors to try and support them in that arena. And so many aspects. And I know I've worked with many patients or seen many patients in the clinics with autoimmune illnesses. And autoimmune illnesses are illnesses where your body creates antibodies to your own cells, and so you basically end up destroying your own cells. And there's so many illnesses that have an autoimmune response. So there's certain thyroid diseases, there's lupus. I don't know if you have too much of that in India, but many autoimmune illnesses, even rheumatoid arthritis, or some of the arthritides, are autoimmune illnesses. And so most of these illnesses, flare up with stress. And I remember I had a patient who had immune thrombocytopenic purpura, and that's where your body creates cells that then attack your platelets, which are one of the components of your blood. And so her platelets kept dropping no matter how we tried to optimize it. And I then eventually asked her, what is happening? Because we cannot get on top of this, and we will have to then admit you. And then finally, with tears in her eyes, she volunteered that as a child she was abused. And when she shared this of late with her husband, he then put her down even further. So he made her feel worse for the abuse. And so instead of supporting her, he created self-hate in her. And so as a result, with that stress, you could see there's a lot of self-loathing, self-hate. And self-hate can manifest, in these autoimmune diseases where you create aspects in your blood that actually kill your own cells. And so just to see how there's such a vast array of illnesses that are showing us that there is a deep impact of our inner well-being on our physical health. And so this topic, will to be well, can I do that inner work to create a difference, and so that then impacts on my body and my relationships and all aspects of myself. There's 4 domains of the self: the physical, the psychological, the social, and the spiritual. So every day, can I deeply check all these 4 domains of my life? Physically, am I taking care? Psychologically, what are the burdens that I'm carrying? Are they true? Should I continue with such thoughts that eat away at me, not just internally in my mind, but also eat away at my body and causes stress and strain? Socially, can I look at my relationships? Are they healthy? Do I come from that space of power within, and respect for the self and respect for everyone else? And can I pay attention to see that relationships too are in harmony and not creating a burden on myself? And then also spiritually, do I make time for my spirituality? Because definitely it is the core for all these other domains. And many studies showing the impact of spirituality on well-being. And so, how does mind body medicine work? So, when we are physically or emotionally stressed, we actually then create these 2 hormones called cortisol and adrenaline. And these 2 hormones then cause a myriad of reactions in our body. The aim of these 2 hormones were there when we could respond to stressors. For example, we were being attacked, and then we could run and breathe faster, and our muscles could be perfused with lots of blood, and our heart can beat at a rate that would allow you to jump and run, etc. But what is happening is today, living in the world is such a fright because you don't turn the corner before you get another shock, and if you don't know how to deal with those shocks then create a surge of these 2 hormones called cortisol and adrenaline. And then our heart starts beating faster, our blood pressure increases, our lungs fill, and are perfused better. The blood supply to our gut is shut down, because when you're in an anxious situation, you don't need to digest your food, you need to run, and then also, so accordingly, then the sicknesses that result are hypertension, and with the cortisol being surging into our body, we release a lot of sugars. And if we're releasing all those sugars all the time in our body, then diabetes, asthma is also a stress-related illnesses. And those of you who may have asthma or know people who have asthma, when they have a stress in their life, their asthma does flare up. And so yes, these 2 hormones, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes, they have an impact on the body. Muscles go into tension, ready to be used, and that's why we may have stiff shoulders and body ache from the muscles going into tension, gastric ulcers, or what you would call gastritis, heartburn. People can't sleep because they have all this adrenaline surging in their bodies. And like I said, even cell atrophy in the brain. So all aspects of the body gets impacted with these two hormones. And so there's many techniques that people use to try and reduce these hormones. And so there's biofeedback, cognitive behavioral therapy, relaxation techniques, deep breathing, muscle relaxation, mindfulness meditation, hypnotherapy. And for myself, meditating with the Brahma Kumaris from when I was 21 years of age, while studying at the university, studying medicine, I can definitely vouch for Raja Yoga meditation and how it has definitely helped me to keep a check on these two hormones, that so that they don't create stress. I know many people will tell you, but I'm not stressed, but they would be so anxious and their muscles all in a knot. And well, you can only let them be until they feel they need to then look at themselves when they reach, a space where they are ready to look at themselves. And so I will share with you just some techniques that I have seen through some storytelling with some of my patients, but there's a few concepts from Raja Yoga that I can see how, it works amazingly for patients. And the first aspect that one needs to really look at is, to understand that the soul, I am separate from my body, and to really feel this body is a precious vehicle that I can use to really play my part. And for me, this is the first restoring concept. And I know for myself, when I worked in very violent emergency departments, under very stressful conditions. I would come back after 36 hours of working, and I remember I would try to sleep and I just couldn't sleep because you were so hyped up with all the adrenaline, all the cortisol. And I would actively then just, invite every muscle of this body to relax, just sending wonderful, loving energy into every aspect of this body, my feet, my calves, my legs, my back, my spine. And up until this moment, I still do that, because I really feel we have to respect the body. It allows me to live. So if I did not value this body, how could I play my part, in life? And so know that I am more than my body, and I have to be a very nurturing energy to this body, like Dr. Emoto's studies. Can I share loveful, peaceful, powerful light into this body, and wave after wave, just massaging all the trillions of cells in this body, just to feel. It's like I live on the ocean. So Durban is on the Indian Ocean, the east coast of South Africa. And I love the ocean. And it's so beautiful to just visualize this living energy that I am, the soul, just bathing all my trillions of cells with that peace, with that light and power that it needs. Because I feel we're too harsh with the body. We work it like a horse, and we expect it to do everything, and giving no time to really appreciate it, to thank this body, thank every part of this body. I know, many of you have demanding lives, and but stop for a moment, and just share all this wonderful energy in that body. For myself, I'm remembering an example of how this helped someone. It was actually my uncle. He was diagnosed with stomach cancer, diagnosed one day and admitted the same day, and had his stomach removed. And the next morning the next day he found himself waking up in ICU, totally confused as to what just happened in the last 24 hours. And he was a very strong builder. So, a man who used his strength to achieve, and now suddenly his stomach was removed. He was given a diagnosis that he could not fathom, and then he was very upset, very angry. And as I would visit him, he would always ask me, "Why did they butcher me?" And and no matter how much I tried to explain the medical understanding of why they had to, remove the stomach, he just could not accept it. And so now surgeons understand the importance of counseling before sudden surgeries. But at that time, it was immediate. And so I could see that I couldn't get him to understand. And so I used to visit, but then my visits began to wane and slow down. And then my aunt called me the one day, and she said, "Raksha, please visit your uncle. He's asking for you." And so when I visited this time, once again, as soon as I sat, he started asking me, "Why did they butcher me?" And I just thought, the normal medical understanding is not going to help him. And I said, "What are you afraid of? Do you think that now you can't be that builder, the man that you used to be, that you don't exist, that you're not valuable? I understand that you are a peaceful and powerful soul. You're not just that body. You're this living energy, and you are more than what you used to do and who you were, defined by your roles and responsibilities." And for the first time in 2 years, I could see there was some light in his eyes. And and he told my aunt, "Write that down." And so in her shaky cursive writing, she wrote down, "I am a peaceful, powerful soul." And I told him, "I want you to tell yourself 8 times a day." I thought, let me give him some homework whilst he's open. And I said, I want you to tell yourself 8 times a day that I'm a peaceful and powerful soul. And I then, called the next day or 2 days later, and I asked my aunt, "How was he?" And she says, "He's never been better. He's been telling himself that he's a peaceful, powerful soul." And those 2 years of misery had slowly faded away as he adopted a new identity, not just that body, but the identity of the spirit, the identity of the soul that is untouchable. People may cut out organs, but they cannot cut out any part of the soul. And within that month, he passed away. And when my aunt called me to diagnose that he did pass away, at midnight, my cousin had called me. And when I went there, at his bedside was this little note: "I am a peaceful and powerful soul." And I, just waited around. And my aunt came to me in the other room, and she said, "Raksha, what you told him changed his entire life. And these last few weeks were the best he had had. And just because he chose to practice and experience himself as separate from that body, the living soul, the untouchable spirit." And so how important this concept is, to will to be well. And many, many more stories like that. I had a patient in his 30s with stage 4 brain cancer. And when I first met him, he was barely able to say a few words. He was angry, he was swearing, he was bedbound. And then I was doing my master's research on dignity in the dying, and I interviewed him. And then I did a guided imagery or a meditation on the untouchable soul. And as I did this meditation with him, something must have happened, because the next time I visited, he was walking and he was screaming. And the week before, when I visited, he was so miserable. His 5-year-old son was was curled up in a corner, so scared because he was rejecting his son because he couldn't cope with the fact that he was in a terminal stage of his illness. And his wife was at wit's end because she did not know what to do and how to help him. And she also needed to help her son. And so when he was walking and screaming, I asked him, what happened? He said, it's that thing you did with me. It helped me realize that I was depressed, but I'm more than this. And he said, I've shared it with my son, I've shared it with my wife. And he began to accept his son once again, and he made peace before he passed away, before he left the body. And so another beautiful example of how, when I understand that I'm separate from my body, I'm greater than my body, there is that impact of these beautiful vibrations of the soul that can then support the body and help that well-being. And I know I had also done the course with so many people, the meditation course, and I had one lady who had come, and when she came, she had her body fully covered, right to her wrists, and she said that she had such severe psoriasis that if she sat anywhere, she would just leave skin behind. Psoriasis is another autoimmune illness where you then eat away at your skin cells, and accordingly then your skin cells die and fall off, and so she had such severe psoriasis for her entire body. And then as I continued to teach her the meditation course, by the end of those lessons, she started coming with short sleeves and she says, look what meditation has done to me. My psoriasis has settled down, it's cooled down. And another beautiful example of how, when I really understand who I am, how that then can reduce all that stress, all that adrenaline and cortisol that is creating the mayhem in the body. And the second aspect that I want to look at is that importance of support. So, we're living in a time where loneliness is a big thing as well. And so many have now been forced to live in their own little spaces. And the other support that I found in my master's research with patients with advanced stage 4 cancer and dignity was that those who, did not consider themselves to be alone, those who had faith, and those who reached up to a higher source of support, they maintained their dignity. Their suffering was lessened, their anxiety was less, and their depression was less, and their quality of life was better. And so not only do I really need to know that I'm more than this body, I'm this powerful spirit, but I also need to reach out to a higher source of energy if I want to be well, because it's hard to do things alone. We need support, we need that company, and for me in Raja Yoga, and with all my patients, be they from whichever faith, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, those who have faith and they don't feel alone, they maintain their hope and they move powerfully through their challenges. And so the second concept that does help everyone maintain their dignity and their self-worth and their power in all the change in the body, are those who reach out to something higher, something beyond this current space. And so to know that, as an untouchable soul, untouchable spirit, in a world beyond the physical, I can reach out to a supreme support. And in that connection, I can then fill up with all the energy that I need to manage the challenge, to be well. And so never ever feel alone. And really, faith is to believe in that which you cannot see. And so, do you also believe that, as an energy, there are 7.8 billion beings of energy, and there is a supreme energy, and I am connected to all 7.8 billion beings of energy. And so let me stay connected to that source of all that power, and let me influence and support myself first. And as I do that work, I will help all 7.8 billion beings of energy. And we're living in a time where these 7.8 billion beings of energy are so stressed. They've lost absolute sight of who they are and why they are here. And so let me not do the same. Let me help them by connecting to my inner power, to a higher source of power. And then the third concept that is also so important is to look at how I can maintain stability in all the emotions that I may go through in the drama of life. So to understand that, the world is but a stage and we are the actors, and a lot is going to be happening in this drama of life. But let me not fluctuate in my emotions, but let me stay inside, stay connected, and know that no matter what is happening, the world is conspiring, to take me to greater heights. And the world is not against me. It's not me against the world and poor little me, but there is benefit in everything. As soon as anything happens, can I keep this mantra that there is benefit in this too, and quickly see the benefit, or be patient and not react immediately, but just be patient to observe what this can show me as well. You may have heard the saying, what is in the way is the way. And so a lot will still happen to everyone, but to know that what is coming to me, what is in the way is the way. And it's not that the world is conspiring against me, but the world and all situations are only conspiring for me, so that I can then discover the inner strengths that I do possess. And so I can grow that. And so the situation is giving me a chance to grow myself. And so can I find meaning in everything in my life? So like I shared, a lot will happen, but quickly find the benefit, quickly find the meaning, and thrive, rather than get influenced, affected, and challenged. I know I had a patient with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, an amazing lady. She was the CEO of a pharmaceutical company, chose to leave her high-flying job in another city and move down to sunny Durban along the coast. And after a year or two of choosing to live a less stressful life, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And she thought, why now? I've chosen to live a wholesome life, and still, despite having a very healthy diet, exercise, not too busy of a life, I still go and get this cancer. But despite that, in her 40s, diagnosed with a cancer that has a very short prognosis, she chose to make the best of her time. And so she started journaling, and she started being grateful for everything and everyone in her life. She had many parties, she did a video recording, she had many celebrations, and and supported by medical people to ensure her pain was under control, etc. You know, I was in Mount Abu when her brother called me from her home, and he says the home is so peaceful. She's pain-free, she's comfortable, she's semi-comatose, her cats are laying on her bed with her, and she said to tell you that that you fulfilled all her wishes, in that she was scared about this time, but she really so she looked at herself psychologically. She ensured she came to balance in all her relationships socially. She did that inner work spiritually and physically. We took care of her symptoms. And so really another beautiful story of she found meaning. And in her video recording that she sent to me, and in her legacy that I had done with her, I did some legacy work with her. She said that cancer was a gift. She would have never lived these last few months, so profoundly had she not been diagnosed. And so what is in the way is the way. And so she really then lived that time. Those 3 months were powerful, were amazing. She lived her entire life in those 3 months very powerfully, and she went peacefully. And so, will to be well. And these are some concepts that you could use to will to be well, knowing that I'm separate from this body. I am a peaceful and powerful soul, and I can reach up, have that faith in subtle support, and be supported by a supreme energy. And then no matter what is happening, unpack it so I see the benefit, find meaning in the loss, because in this too, there is a message. And if I heed the message, I'll prosper. And if I don't, I will then suffer. And so it's my choice. And so thank you. We can look at some questions if we have time, and then I'd like to do a meditation as well.
Sister, we don't have any questions as of now. Maybe we can start the meditation, and if the participants have questions, they can write in the chat box, or they can unmute and ask, whichever way you prefer. You want to do it first or later.
Okay, so since there's no questions, I think we can do the meditation, and then if any questions come to mind, you can put it in the chat box. Okay? Yeah.
I have a question. Can I ask?
Yes.
How can I help my son to strengthen his will to get well?
Okay. It's often not so easy to help another, but just to be there and to send lots of wonderful and supportive thoughts until they are ready to want to be well, and so to be there physically and with your mind to support them, with lots of good, loving thoughts. I remember, one of the meditators, her son was going to this private school, and he got into a group of bad company, and he started taking drugs, and he would come home, in the early hours of the morning, and it was difficult to help him. But when she would wake up early in the morning to meditate, after her meditation, she would just, go to his bedroom and see him as the soul sleeping in the bed, coming from his wild parties, and she would then just see him as the soul lying in that bed and just send him lots of powerful thoughts and good wishes. And she still continued to fulfill her responsibilities, and so he knew the door was open for that communication when he was ready. And that meditation and those thoughts that she shared with him did help him. And so even what is in the way is the way. So in this situation between you and this soul, there's something you also need to learn. And so can you unpack what message you need to gather from this relationship, and then keep sending powerful thoughts to that soul and keep them in the presence of a higher energy? So I like this wonderful triad: the supreme, you, and the other person. So between you and the other person, there's something to be learned. And so learn the lesson with support from the source, and then keep sharing that good wishes. So whatever account there is between you and that being, it can melt away such that he will be open then to approach what you can suggest as a way to be well. So that triad of soul, supreme energy, you the soul, and that one as a soul, and see what you're supposed to learn in this interaction, and then take from the source to keep giving and surrounding that soul in this good energy. And then at some point, he will be ready. So that's what I feel would be some technique you could use. I hope that's helpful, man. I didn't get your name. So I hope that was helpful, brother.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank
We have
you.
one
Thank you
question
very
in the
much.
chat box. Sister,
Okay. So sister, should I read it? Or
Yes,
will you
sister,
read?
please continue. How we need to see the negative thing happening to the world, like the situation of the pandemic and different other terrorism and negative situations that are there, and what should be our perspective when we are looking at such scenarios around us?
Yeah. So I see. My internet broke up a bit, but yeah, so there's so much happening in the world. It's really all happening all at once, like we could have never believed. And so definitely so much is happening. And I really feel for myself, when I can see all the mayhem, I feel I need to be so connected to a higher energy, and I need to be like a lighthouse for all these continents of the world, because the world is really going through so much challenge, like they could never have imagined, like we also did not imagine. And so really, no matter what is happening, can I stay above, and as I stay above and beyond it, and I stay connected to a source, I then keep my energy full and overflowing so that I can support the world. We really have to develop faith in the subtle, and don't think that only what you can do with your hands and your mouth matters, but what you do with your vibration is greater. Because as a soul, vibrationally, I can reach the whole world. With my mouth, with my hands, I can only reach a few. I remember when I was an intern, so I just finished medicine in 2002. I was working 36 hours in surgery. And so I was quite exhausted. It was 5 a.m. and I thought, let me just go and look at the ocean. This hospital was on the ocean. So I thought, I'd work nonstop. So And then as I looked at the huge red sun rising over the ocean, and there were rowers rowing on the ocean, and then I looked back at Casualty, we call it Casualty here, and it still looked so full. And I thought I worked 24 hours by then. And then I had that deep feeling, and that was only in my first few months of medicine, practicing medicine, that I can only help so much with my hands, but spiritually, with my mind, I can help the world. Because as a young person I had that deep wish to make a difference in the world. And when I started working in the world, I realized I can make a difference, but to a limited number with my hands. But spiritually, if I keep the highest thoughts and feelings, I can help the whole world. And so it's not selfishness, but it's really an important concept to understand, that your vibrations do serve the world. And so connect to a source of support, and allow that energy to flow to you and through you to support the whole world. And so I remind myself of that often, because a lot is happening. In South Africa, we also had some riots, and it was a little bit of a scary time for many, and everyone was so anxious and at wit's end. And at that time, I knew I had to hold a higher vibration, not just for myself, but for the neighborhood, when there was violence and rioting. And so can I really trust and believe that there's a lot of power in subtle service, and don't just read and get frustrated and talk about these situations, because then you're growing the negativity and the anger in the world, so think about how can I help, rather than keep speaking about. And it's good to know, but when I know, what am I doing with what I know? Am I then responding to help the fire, or am I choosing to add fuel to the fire? So like people say in the world, often when something happens, everyone talks, like in South Africa, when there's a car accident, so many will stop their cars and stop to look at what's happening, and in doing that, other cars bump into them, and there's more accidents. And so don't be of that nature. Even when you pass an accident, just share your good wishes that you can support, and if you can help, then you can stop to help, but not to look at. and so yeah. So should I do a meditation? If anyone has other questions, we can look at that then.
No other questions in the chat box. Sister, I think we can go on to meditation.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so I invite you now to sit comfortably and relax. And as I'm seated here, I just invite my entire body to become totally relaxed. From the top of my head to the tips of my toes, I scan my body. And if there's any tension, maybe in the neck and shoulders, I just relax them. And slowly, as I'm seated here with both my feet on the ground and my hands on my lap, I say thank you to these precious feet that have carried me on an amazing journey through life. I thank these legs, just relaxing the muscles of my legs. I straighten my spine, just so appreciative to this spine that carries this body to play its part, to fulfill all the roles and responsibilities. I take a deep breath in, just filling these lungs with peace. To the absolute recesses of my lungs, as I breathe out all the stale air in my lungs. Once again, I breathe in peace, filling my lungs with peace. And I breathe out, relaxing my neck and shoulders. We can hold so much tension in this neck and shoulders. And I just relax them even more and more. Relaxing my arms to the tips of my fingers, my scalp and face and jaw. And in this moment, I visualize a beautiful light, like a tiny star in the night sky, just softly shining in the center of my forehead. And from this tiniest light, rays of peace, waves of power and light just flow like ocean waves from this tiniest light, bathing all my trillions of cells. This light flows in waves constantly, bathing my head and flowing down my neck into my shoulders. And these waves of peace and light flow like ocean waves to the tips of my fingers and down my body to the tips of my toes. And all the trillions of cells of this body just drink up this peace. This is who I am. I am this untouchable soul. And a lot may happen in the body. And no matter what happens, I just share vibrations of light and love and peace. My body will do what it has to do. But I, this living energy, I have to do what I have to do. And so with wave after wave, I just fill this body with so much love, so much peace. And with one thought, I connect to a support, to a supreme support of light and peace and power. And I, this light, this untouchable soul, I just immerse myself in that ocean of love and light and peace. And I just soak in all the peace, all the light, all the power. And filling up, I feel this energy then flow to me and through me into the world. And I feel this love and peace just blanket the world. All 7.8 billion lights And so this is what I have to do as often as I can. Come back to the awareness of who am I? Who do So Om Shanti.
Thank you, sister, for this very beautiful meditation and the very wonderful session, I must say, because we're getting great feedback in the chat box. The best thing was that you shared firsthand experience, how you have dealt with patients who were in the terminal stages and how their will and how their internal state helped them in those phases. Thank you so much. We hear these things when we, from a third, fourth, maybe read somewhere, but today you shared them firsthand and it was absolutely beautiful. Everyone is sharing their appreciation in the chat box, and thanks to you. Everyone enjoyed today's session. So thank you so much for joining us today all the way from South Africa, Durban, in Hyderabad, Shanti Sarovar. We hope to see you sometime in person as well. Till then, we have thanks to the scientific tools we are meeting virtually. So
Thank you.
before we end today's session, I would like to announce certain things. So next weekend, we will have another beautiful session. We have the topic building resilience through silence. So our speaker would be Bhargavi Shanti Kumarji, who would be presenting how to build resilience through silence. So we invite all the participants again, same platform, same time, and have another evening of refreshing Sunday talk. And a few more things. We would like to tell you that as the Shara is coming, Shanti Sarovar will be hosting celebratory evenings next week. And on 15th October, we would be having a big program. So you all are invited to come. And definitely you are visiting between up to for the darshan and the daily puja that is done for the Shara. So thank you everyone for joining us in today's talk, and thanks again Sister Raksha for this wonderful evening. It again definitely became a relaxing and refreshing evening.
Thank you for the opportunity. Lots of love to everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.